Have you ever wondered why you can't seem to forgive yourself? For not being okay? Why even on the days when you manage to survive, you lie in bed at night feeling like you failed? Not because you did something wrong, but because everything still feels hard. Because deep down, you still believe that struggling is a kind of weakness. A silent, secret shame. Proof that somewhere, somehow, you're just not enough. You don't say it aloud, but it lives in your body. In the way your shoulders tense before you speak. In the way you apologize for needing rest. In the way you hide your tears, even when no one is watching. You carry it like a bruise under your skin. The belief that ease equals success, and pain equals failure. But who taught you that? Who taught you to measure your worth by how well you can pretend? Because I promise you, you weren't born with that belief. You didn't come into this world afraid to cry. You didn't come into this world ashamed of needing help. You learned it. You learned it every time someone looked uncomfortable with your sadness. Every time your silence was misunderstood. Every time your fear was met with distance instead of presence. You learned that to be loved, you had to be strong. And not just strong, but effortless. Unbothered, independent, in control. So now, even when you're falling apart, you do it politely. You break down in isolation. You grieve in whispers. You unravel behind a smile that says, "Don't worry, I'm fine." But you're not fine. You're tired of holding it all, of feeling like your struggle is something that needs to be hidden or fixed before you deserve connection again. And the world doesn't make it easier. It celebrates the bounce back, the comeback, the glow up, but it has no language for the middle. The long, messy, invisible part of healing. The part where nothing makes sense yet. Where you're still waking up anxious. Still losing sleep over things you can't name. Still unsure if you're moving forward or just spinning in circles. And in that space, it's easy to believe that you're the problem. But you're not. You're just still becoming. And becoming is not a straight line. It's a spiral, a labyrinth, a sacred unraveling. But no one ever told you that. They only taught you to chase results. To climb, to conquer, to achieve. No one taught you how to sit with the version of yourself who doesn't know what comes next. So when you struggle, you panic. You rush to label it, to fix it, to explain it away. But some things aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be felt, held, witnessed. You don't need a solution right now. You need space. Space to unlearn the idea that struggling makes you unlovable. Space to realize that what looks like falling apart might actually be a slow, sacred falling inward. Because what if this isn't your failure story? What if this is the part of your life that you'll look back on and whisper? That's where I started coming home to myself. I know that doesn't feel true yet. You still carry too much blame. You still think, if I were stronger, I wouldn't be here. But strength isn't the absence of struggle. It's the refusal to abandon yourself in it. Real strength is quiet, soft, unimpressive to the outside world. It's the moment you choose not to numb out again. The moment you breathe through the wave instead of fighting it. The moment you say to yourself, "I'm still here," even when every part of you wants to disappear. That's strength. But you've been looking for strength in performance, in perfection, in control. You've been trying to earn safety by proving you don't need it. But that's not how healing works. You don't heal by becoming invincible. You heal by becoming honest. By allowing the part of you that's still hurting to speak without interruption. Without shame. Without being rushed. And when you listen closely, that part of you doesn't ask for answers. It asks for permission. Permission to be where you are, without guilt. Permission to slow down. To not have it figured out. To be soft in a world that taught you to be hard. And maybe most of all, permission to feel like a mess without making that mean you've failed. Because the truth is, every version of you that's ever struggled also kept going. Even when it was ugly. Even when it was quiet. Even when no one clapped. That's not failure. That's devotion. That's a soul that refused to shut down, even when it didn't know what healing looked like yet. And I want you to hear this. You don't owe anyone your resilience. You don't have to make your pain poetic. You don't have to turn your trauma into triumph on a timeline. You are allowed to struggle. Just struggle, without turning it into a performance piece. You are allowed to exist in a liminal space, the space between no longer and not yet. You are allowed to cry and not have a reason. To rest without earning it. To wake up afraid and still be worthy of love. Because your worth is not conditional. It was never meant to be something you prove through progress. And yet, I know how convincing the old belief still is. That voice in your head, the one that whispers, "You're falling behind." It's persistent, because it was built over time. With repetition. With the echoes of childhood wounds. With the silence of not being seen. So let's go to the root. Gently. Let's ask, who first made you feel like your emotions were too much? Whose love became scarce the moment you started struggling? What parts of you had to disappear, just to keep being accepted? You didn't develop these beliefs in a vacuum. They were passed down, inherited like invisible luggage. And now, you carry the weight of perfection. Not because you want to, but because no one ever taught you how to be safely messy. But it's okay now. You don't need to keep performing a life you're quietly breaking under. You don't need to keep pretending your heart isn't heavy. What you need is to be met in your truth. To be reminded that struggle is not a flaw in your character. It's a signal, a message, a call back to presence. Because somewhere along the way, you abandoned yourself, not out of weakness, but out of survival. You thought, if I can just fix this, they'll love me again. But the one who needs your love now is you. Not the you they wanted. Not the you tried to become to stay safe. But the real you, the one who still struggles sometimes, who still gets overwhelmed, who still forgets how far they've come. That version of you doesn't need fixing. They need welcoming. And that's what healing really is. Not erasing the parts of you that hurt, but learning to hold them with kindness. Even when they're inconvenient, even when they show up unannounced, even when they don't go away on your schedule. This is your invitation to stop running, to stop apologizing, to stop translating your struggle into shame. You are not too much. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply human, in the middle of your becoming, in the beautiful, terrifying, sacred mess of being real. And that is enough. And sometimes, enough isn't loud. It doesn't march in with certainty. It doesn't shout over your doubts. Sometimes, enough sounds like a whisper in the dark. A quiet, trembling voice that says, I don't have it all figured out, but I'm still here. And isn't that what you've always done? You stayed, even when your heart was tired, even when your mind was spinning, even when the world felt like too much. You stayed, not because it was easy, not because you had a plan, but because something in you, something ancient, something sacred, refused to give up on the possibility of becoming whole. That is not failure. That is faith. The kind of faith that doesn't need certainty to keep going. But I know you forget that. You forget how much you've already carried. You forget how brave it is to keep showing up when nothing feels certain. You forget how much of your healing has been invisible, happening in quiet moments. Behind closed doors, with no applause and no timeline. You forget that even surviving was a kind of art. Because no one gave you the tools. No one handed you a manual. You were thrown into chaos and told to build a life out of it. And somehow, you did, not perfectly, not cleanly, but beautifully, honestly, painfully. And if no one told you this before, let me tell you now. I'm proud of you, not for being strong, not for being put together, but for being real, for feeling it all, for not shutting down, for giving your pain a place to live that isn't silence. That's not weakness, that's soul, and soul doesn't care about performance. It doesn't care how productive you were this week. It doesn't care how many goals you hit, how many steps you took toward getting better. Your soul only cares if you listened, if you stayed close, if you told the truth, even when it hurt. And the truth is, you're tired. But that doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've been fighting for too long without rest. It means you've been holding your breath, hoping life would finally give you a break. It means your nervous system is still waiting for permission to relax. So maybe that's where we begin again. Not with another plan, not with another fix, but with permission. Permission to be exhausted. Permission to be human. Permission to not have a breakthrough today. Just this. Breathe. Let your shoulders fall. Let your chest rise. Let your body remember what safety feels like, even if just for a moment. You don't have to earn your healing. You don't have to hustle for your worth. You don't have to wait until you're better to deserve rest. You're allowed to be a work in progress. You're allowed to have days when the sadness lingers. You're allowed to feel like you're starting over, again and again. That's not backtracking. That's life. And life doesn't move in straight lines. It loops. It pauses. It surprises you with storms and then blesses you with stillness. You are not behind. You are simply moving at the speed of real healing. And real healing is slow. It's sacred. It doesn't rush to impress. It asks only that you stay with yourself, kindly, consistently, without turning away. So maybe today, instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you ask, "What is this part of me trying to say?" And maybe instead of resisting your struggle, you sit beside it like an old friend. You pour it a cup of tea. You say, "You don't scare me anymore." You let it tell you everything you've been trying not to hear. Because the truth is, struggling isn't the enemy. Abandoning yourself in the struggle is. And you've done that long enough, haven't you? You've ignored the soft parts. You've talked over the grief. You've edited your pain into something palatable so others could digest it. But your healing was never meant to be a performance. It was meant to be a reclamation, a coming home, a remembering of the you that existed before the world taught you shame, before your softness was labeled dramatic, before your needs became something to apologize for. That version of you is still here, buried beneath the armor, waiting, not for rescue, but for recognition. And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Looking in the mirror and seeing more than your wounds, more than your struggle, more than your mistakes. Seeing the person beneath it all, tender, tired, trying, still here, still worthy, still becoming.